I'm giving out tips and tricks to every single Binding of Isaac character, from beginner tips to veteran tips to just refreshers to make sure you understand how the game works. I'm giving them all right here for every single character in the game. So the biggest thing with Isaac is making sure you have the D6 unlocked. If you don't have the D6 unlocked, please focus on doing that first. But the biggest thing for Isaac is just making sure you are basically optimally using your D6, saving your charges when needed, and focusing your rolls on the right place. Now, I know a lot of people out of the gate usually want to use their roll on the treasure room, but that's actually not the best case to use it on. Using the D6 is better to focus on the secret rooms first, then to any deal rooms you have, and then boss rooms, and then finally the treasure rooms. In my opinion, treasure rooms is probably the last thing you want to roll first, just because the amount of items that are in the treasure room are so high. The likelihood of you getting a fantastic items are a lot lower than if you roll in something like the secret room or the deal room you get for that floor, or even the boss pool. Now, if after all of the other rolls you still have charges for the treasure room, obviously go in there and roll if you have it, but just making sure you use the D6 optimally here will help you out the most when playing Isaac. Now, in terms of the deals you want to go to, I would say going angels over devils is definitely the key on Isaac here, just because whenever you do have the key pieces unlocked, you can blow up the angel statue, have it drop the key piece, but instead of picking it up, you roll it into another free angel room item. So instead of you only able to take one item, you can take potentially two, which is better. That's good, and you have to spend your health on it. That's pretty good in my opinion.
Shut up, Maggie! Shut up!
So Magdalene here, the one thing you want to make sure you have unlocked first is the full health pill that Magdalene starts with. Now, you unlock it by doing whatever is listed above, but make sure you do that first before kind of jumping head first into the character, because that full health pill does help you out a whole lot in terms of what you can do with the character. Having the full health pill will help you basically abuse any sacrifice room you find on the first floor. Go hit the spikes a whole bunch, use the Yum Heart, use the full health pill, get a free angel room item or something like that super early. Get your free sacred heart out of the way. Now, alongside that, since you have so much HP, obviously you want to be abusing any kind of demon beggars you find, any blood donation machines you find. Making sure you abuse those is really good with the amount of HP you have early, plus the Yum Heart on top of it. Now, on top of that, since you have so much HP, if you need an extra boost early, I definitely recommend going Devils, just because you have the 4 hearts. You can lose 1 or 2 to get a free Brimstone or something, and still have 2 hearts left over. It's still very good, so I definitely recommend going Devils over Angels in this case, unless you're just a god gamer and can skip the Devils and you want to go Angels instead. Feel free to do so, but in my opinion, I think Devils are better. For Cain here, there's not a whole lot you can do to abuse the starting items on the character, but obviously the biggest thing that Cain starts out with is the paperclip trinket, which lets you open up golden chests for free, which is very good, especially for early game when you don't have a lot of keys. So my only recommendation there is during the early game, hold on to your paperclip trinket, don't throw it away for something else until you have a good amount of keys ready, and then whenever you find a better trinket, or at least something that'll do a little more than what paperclip was doing, feel free to trade it away for something else. Now, besides that, Cain does also start out with a whole bunch of extra early damage. I think it's like 4.2 damage or something like that. Taking care of the early game is fairly easy, so in my opinion, I do think it is better to go Angels over Devils, just because I don't think you need that extra boost that a Devil could give you, and you could just save it and go Angels later on the 3rd floor, or whenever you're lucky enough to get one. Not a whole lot of tips and tricks on Cain, just besides abusing the paperclip and going Angels. Judas has a billion damage, but no hearts. That's kind of his shtick. Now, the biggest thing with Judas is the Book of Belial. Obviously, it's the one active item he starts with, which also inherently boosts your deal chance. Devils or Angels, it boosts either deal chance you want to go to. So my recommendation here, hold on to the Book of Belial. Do not get rid of it until you find something completely crazy, and maybe even after the womb or something like that, where you don't have deals anymore. It's still nice to get that extra damage, but later in the game when you don't need an extra 2 damage on top of your 15, it's not going to do that much of a difference, so you're okay to trade it away at that point. Besides that, obviously you have 1 or 8 HP. Don't go Devils, go Angels. Be smart about this. You don't have a lot of hearts to play with, so just go Angels. Yeah, you have damage, you go Angels. You hold on to Book forever. Okay, cool. So the biggest thing with Blue Baby, obviously you cannot have red HP, which is the biggest, like, headache point for this character. Red HP items still spawn, red hearts still drop in the floor, but you can just do absolutely nothing with them, which just sucks. But the biggest thing with Blue Baby, hunt for your tinted rocks. Make sure you're being attentive for tinted rocks around each of the levels to make sure you get your HP, because that's basically where you're going to get your HP from, if not from random items or beds you find along the way. Now, besides that, the other thing Blue Baby does start off with here is obviously the poop item. Now, a poop item didn't used to do a whole lot. I know in Repentance they updated it, so whenever you destroy a poop, you spawn a blue fly. A single blue fly. Not a whole lot, it does help a little bit, but if you're really struggling in the early game or even mid game to do additional damage to the boss, I would definitely say the only tip I have here, consolidate all your poop usage to one singular room, and do not pop the poops in that room. What you want to do, basically clear the floor, go room to room, but every time you complete a room, go back to the initial one, spawn your poop in there, and then destroy it at the end of the floor right before you're about to go to the boss. So you have a big swarm of flies with you to help you assist in clearing the boss out. It's not a whole lot of damage, but definitely does help out with the early game bosses, which don't have that much HP. Now, besides that, the poop can also be used to make bridges across gaps in the floor. I haven't really had to do that in many cases, but in the case where you need to make it happen, you can make it happen. Now, obviously, with that being said, if you find a better active item, swap it out. The poop isn't that good. It spawns your flies, it makes a small bridge. It could spawn things too. I mean, if you find petrified poop, holding onto the poop item is very good because it could spawn pennies, soul hearts, all that other stuff you couldn't find before, or at least were very, very less likely to find. You can find it, so in those cases, do hold on to poop. I know the other thing with Blue Baby here are the devil deals are actually cheaper. I know typically like something like Brimstone costs 3 HP for a normal character, but on Blue Baby it only costs 2. So it's actually really, really cheap to go to the devils if you have a little bit of health to play with. But in the cases, which is going to be most of the case, where you don't have that many soul hearts to play with, I do definitely recommend just going angels. Be safe about it. And I mean, with Blue Baby, you are guaranteed to get your deals. You're not going to lose your deal chance at all, even after getting hit. Go angels. You'll be fine. So for Eve, here's the biggest thing with Eve. You start off with 2 HP, you have Whore Babylon to start off with, you have Razor Blade, and you have Deadbird. Deadbird's not going to do much for you, so I'm not really going to be talking much about that. But for the Whore Babylon, I know it is slightly different for Eve, because the way Whore Babylon usually works is on any character that has that item, it to be at half a red heart or less for that to be active for you, to give you a boost in speed and damage and all that. But for Eve specifically, you only need to be at 1 red HP or lower. So using Razor Blade to go down to 1 HP, or going in an early curse room to get down to 1 HP early can help you out a lot. It gives you a big boost in damage. Obviously, it means you're basically one-shot to champion enemies, so just be careful about that. So my biggest tip on there is kind of go around the room first, or go around the floor first to make sure you find maybe a soul heart or something just to cover up in case you get hit, so you won't get one-shot there. And because you want to be abusing that item, I do definitely recommend going devils over angels, just so you can get rid of your red HP in general, just so you don't have to worry about being on 1 HP or less, and in case you pick up a red heart by accident, then you get out of the state and lose a bunch of damage. I definitely recommend just going devils. Like and subscribe to the channel, please. Thank you. So the biggest thing he has is obviously Bloody Gust. Bloody Lust, Bloody Gust. He has one of the bloody items, so every time you take damage, you do increase damage for the entire remaining of the floor. So obviously abusing things like blood donation machines, demon beggars, things that take away your red HP and will cause you to do basically self-harm damage, I do recommend doing. Now besides that, if you're really desperate, you can abuse the curse room door itself to deal damage to yourself without it losing your deal chance. I do definitely recommend going angels over devils, because in my opinion, having more red HP to play with equals more chance to proc Bloody Lust as a whole. So making sure you hold on to your red HP to abuse those donation machines later, to abuse those demon beggars later. Now the only other thing I wanted to mention here is obviously there is one trinket you can unlock, so Samson starts with it, a child's heart. It is completely not necessary to do. I honestly recommend you not doing it, because the challenge you do to unlock child's heart for Samson to start off with is the Ultra Heart Challenge. Don't do that. There's no reason for you to do that and go through that. Just for a stupid little trinket that Samson can start with. Heart spawn enough as it is. Do Ultra Heart later. Okay, you don't need to do it now. It's okay. But for Samson, just, abuse your red HP. Don't give it up. Go angels. Okay, cool. So the biggest thing with Azazel, obviously, you do a lot of damage early. You have the small Brimstone beam. You have flight. So the really big thing for early, abuse your flight. Use that for dodging over rocks, to pick up consumables and stuff over rocks you typically couldn't get before without using the bombs and stuff. So make sure you abuse the flight. Now, obviously, since you have the small Brimstone beam, focus on range ups. I know typically for all the other character, range ups are kind of doo-doo. You don't really need them at all. But for Azazel, they are very, very, very nice to have. They can turn your small Brimstone into basically full Brimstone if you get enough range ups. Now, besides that, the other thing you start off with is the full card. So the big thing with the full card, abuse it to go into your curse room. Go into curse room early, see what's in there, pop a look, and then full card out for free. Obviously, there's not too much else to use the full card for early, so that's typically what I use it for. Now, besides that, go angels over devils. You start with, no red HP, but you can't get red heart, so it's not terrible to go devils. But in my opinion, just go angels. It's safer that way. So Lazarus is actually a bit confusing since they updated him in Repentance. So the way he works now, he now has 1 free death per floor, and if you do die on the floor, you come back immediately with a damage upgrade, which is permanent. So you can basically die every floor for a free damage up. The only thing is when you die, you come back with 1 less red HP than you did the life before. So with that, there's a bit of micromanaging you need to make sure you're doing each floor to make sure you're dying each floor to get your solid damage up, but also maintaining enough hearts to make sure whenever you do come back, you don't just die again immediately. Because obviously, you need to lose all your HP to die, and whenever you come back, you're going to come back with 1 HP, and that's it. So, saving up soul hearts throughout the floor, don't picking them up until you die for the floor, pick up the soul hearts, go to the next floor, and then rinse and repeat to get some free damage ups early. Now, whenever you get to the point where you have good enough damage, don't die anymore. You don't need to do it. Because it is a bit difficult to micromanage all your HP you're going to be needing if you're going to be dying each and every floor. So doing it maybe every other floor or whenever you have enough soul hearts where you feel comfortable dying on that floor, definitely do so. But there are ways in which you can help yourself die, obviously by going devils. You can go devil deals to pick up the red HP deals to then, you know, die, get extra items you typically wouldn't be able to get before. But if you want to play a little bit safer, which I do recommend, is obviously just go angels. Just die on your own accord each floor instead of going through the devil deals. Go angel deals. Make sure you stack up enough red hearts so you die, pick up the red hearts, come back, go angel deals, save your red HP. Only use it to really die and revive through your passive instead of going devil deals. The hardest character to give any tips for, Eden. You start off with random HP. You start off with random items. You start off with random stats. I don't know how many tips I can give you on this character besides kind of just looking at the items you start with and building around that. If you're low on red HP, if you don't have any red HP, make sure you focus on getting some red hearts. Don't go devils, go angels instead. Make sure you save your red hearts. If you're low on damage, there's not a way you can really prioritize and focus on damage. But I mean, you know, look at your stats, look what you have, look what you don't have. Make sure you focus on the things that'll help you out throughout your run and just go with it. There's not many like specific tips I can give you here. Just, you know, be good. So the Lost, obviously the biggest thing for the Lost. Make sure you have Holy Mantle unlocked for the character. I know you have to go through greed mode to unlock it. I think you need around 778 coins in the greed machine or something like that to have Holy Mantle unlocked in the Lost. So go through it, chug through it. It's worth it. It helps out the character immensely. The Lost without the Holy Mantle is honestly one of the hardest characters in the game. So make sure you have it unlocked before you just jump into doing the marks. Now if you're crazy, you can do it anyways, but that's a whole different story. But for the Lost, after you have Holy Mantle unlocked, the biggest thing for him, obviously the biggest, I guess, benefit of playing the Lost, you have Flight, you have Spectral Tears. Very, very, very good, especially early, being able to fly over rocks to get resources you couldn't get before. Very nice. The Spectral Tears on top of it. Now, besides that, the other thing you do have with the Holy Mantle, you can go into curse rooms for free. Now, with that being said, leaving the curse room, you do take damage, so please make sure, if you go into the curse room, be very careful. Do not get hit by any troll bombs that spawn, or any spiders that are in there. Just be careful not to get hit in the curse room, because if you do, and you don't have a TP out, you're gonna die on the way out. So just be forewarned, but definitely abuse free curse rooms throughout the whole run. Just be careful whenever you go in. Now, besides that, I do actually recommend going angels over devils. I know devil deals are technically free as the Lost. You can go in and pick it up for free. You can only pick up one devil deal, which kind of sucks. So in my opinion, I think it is better to go angels because you do start off with the eternal D6 as the Lost now. And if you go to the angels, you can blow up the statue, similar to Isaac, and roll the key piece. Now, there is a chance that whatever you roll disappears, which is just luck of the draw, just get more lucky, I guess, forehead. But you can roll the key piece, so in my opinion, since you can get more than one item in the angel deal, most likely, I do recommend going angels over devils. But with that being said, devils aren't bad either. You can get items for free and early on, so I do think if you need a little boost in damage or a little boost in something early, go take a peek in your devil deal, because you can go either way. So you can take a look. If it's nothing good, you can just skip and go to the next deal. Not a big deal. But yeah, so abuse Flight, go angels, roll things, abuse curse rooms. Just don't get hit. Be better. Don't skill issue. So Lilith, weirdly enough, is kind of similar in my opinion to Samson. We'll get into why in just a second. Obviously, your familiar is going to be shooting for you. Your character is blindfolded. You have a little guy shooting for you, which is cool. The only thing that's weird about it is it's like a little bit delayed from where you are, so it takes a bit of a learning curve to understand how and when to shoot as Lilith, and it can be kind of frustrating early on for newer players, kind of getting used to that. So honestly, play the character a little bit, try to get used to the little familiar shooting for you, and I think that'll help out a whole bunch. It's really just kind of getting used to it. Now besides that, why I said the character is kind of like Samson is because the item you start off with is in Cambion's Conception. But basically, every 15 times you get hit early on, you will get a random familiar. Whether it be another incubus, a succubus, a brother Bobby, some kind of familiar will spawn after you take 15 hits of damage. Now this can be self-harm damage, so things like blood donation machines, demon beggars, curse room doors, things like that can proc and can be in Conception. So in my opinion, keeping as much red HP in general will help you out in the long run to get even more familiars. Now with that being said, you also start off with the active item, the Box of Friends. So, obviously, this synergizes very well with each other, and I think that's the point of the character, to kind of stack up as many familiars as you can. Use the Box of Friends to kind of double all of your buddies to do 1 billion damage in a room whenever you proc it. So that is my recommendation there. Don't let go of your Box of Friends. Hold on to it. It is a very good item, especially on Lilith, and there aren't that many other items I would consider swapping it out for. Maybe a Satanic Bible, maybe a Book of Refs, maybe. But Box of Friends, I do think is very, very good on the character, so hold on to it. Now, obviously, with that being said, with wanting to hold on to as much red HP in general to proc and Cambion Conception, I would recommend not going Devil Deals. I would recommend going the Angels, just because you don't have to give up your red HP, which means you have more to give later to get more familiars. So the Keeper is notoriously very bad in terms of what items they unlock, because a lot of the unlocks that the Keeper has benefits only playing the Keeper. So with that being said, for the Keeper, focus on getting the unlocks for the character that boost you start off with 3 HP and to start off with the Wooden Nickel. These are the biggest 2 unlocks I recommend you doing early, so make sure you do them first. Now, after you have the Wooden Nickel unlocked, there is a bit of tech, I guess you could call, but the way you want to use the Wooden Nickel, you don't want to use it willy-nilly after you clear out a room. That's silly, okay? What you want to do, clear a room, save your charge, walk into the next hostile room, and then pop Wooden Nickel. Doing it this way will make it so the penny drops in the room, so in the case where you do get hit in that hostile enemy room, you can go back and pick up that penny to make sure you're playing a little bit safer so you're not 1 or 2 shot after you get hit accidentally in one of those rooms. So that's what I recommend. Obviously, the other things you can do, make sure you save your pennies throughout the floor to make sure in case you take damage and your Wooden Nickel is not dropping any pennies at all, you can go back throughout the floor, pick up the pennies you didn't pick up earlier. The one thing to note is that Devil Deals, for whatever reason, they cost money instead of hearts, which makes sense technically as the character. In my opinion, it makes more sense as Tainted Keeper, not as regular Keeper, because honestly, as regular Keeper, you're not making that much extra money. Yeah, the Wooden Nickel can spawn a little extra coins now and then, but if I'm being real, not really that often. I mean, it's kind of 50-50 when it spawns. I know it can drop nickels and dimes and stuff too. It never really happens, but it can happen. So, in my opinion, going Angels over Devils is better, because only the Devil Deals cost money while Angel Deals are still free. I don't know why this is the case, but this is the case. So just run with it. So definitely go Angels over Devils, unless you're like blowing up with cash for whatever reason. You can go Devils. You can at least take a look if you wanted to, if you have at least 30 cents. If you don't have 30 cents, completely skip the Devil Deal. Don't even pretend that it's there, okay? Now the other benefit, obviously, with having the coin hearts is obviously you will get a deal every floor, or at least you will get a chance to get a deal every floor. You can't lose that chance unless you just die. So, with that being said, go Angels, don't go Devils. Save your money. If you do have money, go Devils. If not, whatever. So Apollyon is a bit weird because it's basically just Isaac, but instead of starting with a D6, you have the Void item, which in case you don't know, you use the Void and it sucks up any passive item, turns it into stats, and you suck up any active item and it basically repeats that same effect whenever you use the Void again. So with that being said, the biggest thing when playing Apollyon is making sure you're micromanaging your charges on Void correctly. Now the best way in my opinion to use Void is to suck up any kind of passive item that provides you no real benefit. Something like Latchkey gives you, what, 2 keys and a luck up? You really don't need that, in my opinion. That's perfectly voidable. I know typically whenever you void, it turns into any amount of stats, so it could just turn into luck again, or shot speed, or something you really don't need, but having a chance for that to turn into something like fire rate or damage, I will take any day of the week. So obviously focus on that, in my opinion. The other side is obviously using the void to suck up active items to then repeat those effects. In my opinion, that's not that good unless you suck up something like the Book of Revelations or the Satanic Bible or something that gives you health and provides you a benefit for using it in a hostile room that's better than just shooting tears. Because in my opinion, if you suck up something like Krampus' head, Cool, you get the Krampus head effect whenever you use the Void, but the Void is a 6-room charge. And if sucking up a Krampus's head, which is typically a 3-room charge, and now it's a 6-room charge, it's not that good in my opinion, so really just focus on sucking up the passive item effects. Now besides that, go Angels over Devils every time on Apollyon. For the same reason you do so on Isaac and on Tainted or on Lost, is because you can suck up the extra key piece that drops after you blow up and defeat the Angels. So make sure you have the key pieces unlocked, suck up the key, get some extra stats for yourself, and move on with your day. Devils, you can't do that, and everything costs health, icky, yucky health. And really all of Apollyon here is just playing around Void, so make sure you're micromanaging your charges correctly when going into different rooms. There are actually a few different weird tips I can give you for the Forgotten here. Make sure you pick up HP ups on the right character. I know you can't swap between the Soul and the Bony Boy, so make sure you pick up HP ups as the Bony Boy itself to make sure you get a free Bone Heart. Otherwise, you're going to get a Soul Heart, which is kind of, you know, you can pick this up anytime. And Bone Heart's a little more rare to find, so make sure any HP ups go to the Bony Boy. Now, besides that, the other thing I want to make sure you watch out for is range ups. Now, range ups aren't typically too bad, but too many range ups on the Forgotten is terrible. Okay, unless you have a mod to fix it if you're running just the base game vanilla. Do not pick up range ups, or at least an excessive amount of range ups on the Forgotten here. Just because the bone swing from the Bony Boy, it does extend with range, but it is kind of a weird instance where the swing will always stay the same size. It's just the amount of, like, how far away from you initially will go up depending on how much range you have. I don't think I explained that well. Just know that the more range you have is bad, okay? Just because you're going to be swinging over people at that point, which you don't want. Now for this character, I do recommend going Devil Deals, and that is because there is a trick you can do to basically pick up free, quote-unquote, Devil Deal items by abusing a trick. When picking up the Devil Deals as the Soul, if you quickly switch to the Bony Boy while the animation of the Soul picking up the Devil item is going off, you won't actually die. The Soul will not die, and you live on as the Bony Boy. Just be careful not to switch back to the Soul character when it has no HP, otherwise you will just immediately die. And that is a cool trick because you can go out throughout the floor and re-pick up a Soul Heart or two, and that makes it so you can turn back into the Soul character without dying. So you can kind of cheese death there to pick up any extra Devil items you wouldn't be able to pick up before. So I do recommend going Devils over the Angels in this case here. So the way Bethany works is you can't have any Soul Hearts count towards your health. You can only have Red Hearts. So my biggest tip here to help preserve your Devil chance in case you get hit, make sure you have Bone Hearts unlocked. Because the only way you can prevent yourself from losing Deal chance after getting hit is if a Bone Heart is hit. Right, so if you have a Bone Heart, that protects your Deal chance, so make sure you have Bone Hearts unlocked. I know they don't spawn too often, but having a chance to kind of help you out throughout the entire run, Bone Hearts are fantastic to have as Bethany. Now, besides that, the other tips I can give you here, obviously Soul Hearts are still useful. You can use them to get extra charges on your active items, so I do definitely recommend saving onto as many Soul Hearts as possible until you found an absolutely broken active item to spam it on, whether it be in a boss room or there's something like a book where you get a whole bunch of hearts or something like that. I don't know. Just using it like that, making sure you hold on to all the Soul Hearts you have until you find a really good active to spam it on, then go for it. The other tip here, obviously go Angels instead of Devils. I know with starting out with Book of Virtues, you have an innate chance to get Angels over Devils, and you will get an Angel deal early instead of a Devil deal, which is very nice. And obviously that is because you don't want to give away your red HP since you can't hold any Soul Hearts. Red HP is very valuable in this character, so don't go Devils at all unless you're feeling very spicy that day. Just stick to Angels, it works. Last of the normal characters, and one of the hardest, is Jacob and Esau. So the way Jacob and Esau is, you're controlling two characters instead of just the normal one. But you're controlling them with the same control, so it can be very wacky, very weird, especially to get used to for newer players. So my recommendation here, whenever you go into any new room, make sure Jacob and Esau are stacked on top of each other. If for whatever reason they get, bumped away from each other and they're kind of out of sync, make sure you take some time during a hostile room to get them back together and then go about shooting again. Okay, making sure they're together is the best way to play this character. Otherwise, you're going to get hit because you can't look at two places at once unless you're like Go Fish-Eyed or something like that. Just make sure they're on top of each other. It makes your life a whole lot easier. Now, I know there are some rooms which are very stupid and makes it very hard to do so, but just try your best. You'll get used to it over time. Now, in terms of the items for Jacob and Esau, I know that there's a good method a lot of people use, which is stacking all the good items on one character. which basically, in my opinion, stacking all the damage and fire rate and everything on Esau is typically the best, just because he starts off with a higher damage. So just going with the higher damage, give him all the good stuff, and just stack him up, make him the best character there is. Now, in terms of health, obviously you want to make sure both of their HPs are pretty much topped off or pretty much equal throughout the whole run. So try to make health equal throughout the whole run, but stack all the damage and stuff onto one character, and I think that'll help you out throughout the runs. Now, besides that, going angels over devils. I know typically devils you can go into and spend your hearts to get deals, but angel deals are free. And typically in angel deals, it lets you choose between 1 to 2 to 3 items. Typically, you can only take 1. But on Jacob and Esau, it does allow you to kind of space out the characters differently and then pick up both items at once without, the items going away. So you get 2 items for free. The only other tips I have here for Jacob and Esau is if you are used to it, go alternate floors just because the item rooms spawn 2 items, so you get 1 item for each character. I know the alternate floors are a bit harder to go through, so if you're not comfortable with that, you do not need to, but it does help out to give an additional item to both characters to kind of get them both going. So Tainted Isaac, I know it's a bit weird. I know the one thing I do recommend, make sure you have Birthright unlocked. I know for a lot of characters, Birthright helps them out, but I do think for Tainted Isaac specifically, having the ability to hold more items as a whole is better. And in case y'all don't know, the way Tainted Isaac works, you can only hold 8 items, which is crazy. So if you pick up more than 8 items, it takes one of the items you have and puts it back down on a pedestal. But Birthright lets you hold up to 12 items. That's the only reason why I recommend having it unlocked. For the case to have more items, which is always better. My biggest tips here for Tainted Isaac, make sure you pick up all your HP ups. And those are going to be the first things you trade away. Because the cool thing about Tainted Isaac, if you pick up an HP up, you get the HP up, cool. But if you put that HP up back down, after you have enough items so you can put it down, you keep that HP up. So HP ups are basically fodder for you to pick up, get the reward for it, and then put it back down. Now, besides that, obviously you want to focus on keeping the items that help you throughout the run. So any kind of great big stats up like Magic Mush, Cricket's Head, Cricket's Body, things that help synergize with what you're specifically going for, whether it's a whole bunch of tiers, a whole bunch of damage. Just make sure you're focusing on holding the best items possible. Now, the other good thing with Tainted Isaac, which I'm sure you already know about, is the items flip between 2 items. So you have a small choice. So with that being said, my biggest tip here is to go angels over devils, just because I think the angel deals have more of a better pool of items for you to get and to help out your run as a whole compared to the devil deals. I think devil deals have a lot more items that are a bit weaker in my opinion, so I definitely recommend going angels. So Tainted Magdalene, how it works, you basically run into enemies to hug them, and hugged enemies that die drop red HP that basically fades away in a few seconds. So my biggest tip here, the biggest tip, go to all of your shops. Save up at least 15 cents, because in the case Sharp Plug does show up, you just won the run. The reason why Sharp Plug is so good is because the pocket active item you start off with as Tainted Magdalene is Yum Heart, but it's a Yum Heart that heals you 2 HP instead of 1. It still takes only 4 charges, but it is very, very good. And if you do end up getting Sharp Plug, the way Sharp Plug works, it takes your red HP and basically converts it into charges. And since Yum Heart will heal you for 2, you can spam Sharp Plug without taking any damage, and you'll basically stay in the invincibility frames forever, leaving you free to hug enemies 24/7 without taking any damage whatsoever, and your run is just won no matter what. The only thing, make sure your finger is ready to hit the active item button a whole lot, because you're going to be doing it throughout the entire run. It's going to be a little annoying, but it's a free win. So just make sure you have money, and you go to your shops every single floor, and if you reroll, try to keep rerolling until you find Sharp Plug. Very, very, very good synergy on this character. Now, besides that, in the case where you don't find Sharp Plug, obviously making sure you stack as much red HP as in general is the best idea here. And besides that, for early game, make sure you're hugging enemies. It is very easy to clear out early room floors just by hugging enemies, because they will most likely one-shot them. They're still doing half hearts of damage, so you can get your health right back. Nothing too scary there. So make sure you're doing that early. But for late game, when things are doing a full heart of damage, I do definitely just recommend don't even hug anything. Stand in the very back of the room, just shoot where you can, focus mainly on your tiers, because if you go in and try to hug enemies, it will do a full heart of damage, and a lot of the time you will not get the amount of HP back that you put into it. So I do definitely recommend just avoiding hugging things. I do think it can be kind of a bait later in the game. I know you're going to be losing red HP over time. Don't worry too much about that. I know enemies will still be dropping red hearts occasionally after you kill them, just because of how Tainted Maggie works. So if you can, go pick up the red HP it drops. Other than that, just focus on your tiers, focus on dodging, and you'll be fine late. No, obviously going angels over devils is still the key here. Having more red HP is obviously just better as this character, since you basically hug enemies to get red HP. So the more red heart containers you have is just better. So go angels over devils every time on this character. So my tips here for Tainted Cain, there are a few things I want to say here. First off, make sure you have both golden batteries and golden pennies unlocked, because these two things are very high in value for your bag of crafting, so make sure you have these unlocked right out of the gate. Now after you have this unlocked, jumping into the character itself, there are a few different ways you can play it. You can play it the quote-unquote fun way, or the quote-unquote big brain way. Okay, the big brain way, this is when you have external item descriptions on, the mod that lets you see basically all the different item combinations. Okay, now you can take 3 hours to do your run with external item descriptions to craft every single item you want. Great, you can do that. You can get all the marks in one run, take 4 or 5 hours out of your life to go do that. Sure, in my opinion you can, but I'm never going to do that. That's so boring. My way to play the character in the quote-unquote fun way is to play without external item descriptions. Pretend you're playing on console for once, you guys. Just pick up all the items. Just use bag of crafting to pick up everything you find. Just craft whatever it gives you, man. Just craft whatever. The biggest tips here is there is a way to kind of, obviously, the bag of crafting has a weight to each of the items you pick up, and the bigger weight your bag has whenever you're crafting, the better items you're going to get. Which is why I recommend you definitely having the golden batteries unlocked and the golden pennies, just because their weight is super high and it does help basically give you better items in the long run. There is actually a way to make sure you guarantee get an angel item or a devil item, and that is by having either a bunch of eternal hearts in your bag of crafting or a bunch of black hearts in your bag of crafting. Now alongside that, you can have secret room items with bone hearts as well. So if you're trying to go for a specific item there, just make sure you focus on eternal hearts, black hearts, or bone hearts. Other than that, it will just give you basically normal treasure room items most of the time. So just make sure the more rare the pickup is, the higher weight it will be. So if you're going for good items, just pick up the higher weight items throughout the entire floor, or maybe just clear the entire floor first, pick up the good stuff, see what you get, craft it up, and then use all the smaller stuff to get your okay HP ups or a speed up or a range up or whatever. And don't be too greedy about it. Just craft whatever you have when you can. Otherwise, you're going to be looking for the biggest goal at the end of the tunnel, and you're never going to find it, and you're going to have no items by the end of the 3rd floor. So just craft what you can. Don't be too greedy about it. Just take what the game gives you, and you'll be okay. Go angels over devils. Devils still cost health, and there's no guarantee the devil deal, the pickups it does give you after you pick up an item will be good. So just go angels. They're free. They give you eternal hearts. At the end of the day, you can get an HP up if you go angels. So Tainted Judas starts off with the pocket active item Dark Arts, which lets you press it. You are invulnerable for a few seconds. You can run through enemies and tiers, and it does damage after a few seconds, like the Omaewimo Shindaru, whatever the heck that staying is, and you get a small damage up after you pass through all the enemies. So the biggest things, there are a few different things you can use Dark Arts for here. The biggest one, in my opinion, you can use it to get in and out of curse rooms for free, even without flight. So obviously, every time you find a curse room, make sure you go in it. Don't forget about it. Okay, it happens sometimes where you forget you have Dark Arts and you don't walk in it. Make sure you use your Dark Arts. Go in the curse room, take a look what's in there. Now, besides that, Dark Arts can also be used, obviously, to run through enemies, run through bosses, but the biggest thing, or the biggest way to use this item, is on enemies that shoot out a lot of tears. Something like the Mom's Heart fight, where they have the patterns of the tears shooting at you. Using Dark Arts in those scenarios to run through all of the tears to get a big damage up is very, very good. Not only will it stop the tears in their place, it'll give you a big damage up, it'll do a good amount of damage to the boss as well. The other thing with Tainted Judas, you cannot get any red HP, which is kind of annoying, but with the free curse rooms, it'll basically give you a few soul hearts every few floors, so definitely go angels over devils. Devils, they still cost a full amount of soul hearts, 3 soul hearts, compared to normal Blue Baby, which is a bit cheaper of 2 soul hearts or 1 soul heart. So I do definitely recommend sticking with angels. I think it's the better play as a whole, and just abusing Dark Arts where you can. So Tainted Blue Baby is very, very, very weird, but also very strong, in such a weird way. So the way Tainted Blue Baby works, instead of having any bombs spawn at all, you now replace them with different types and variations of poop. Poops have a lot of different functionality to them, and because of the different functionality they have, Tainted Blue Baby is very, very strong right out of the gate, but it can be very confusing, and there are a lot of ways you can actually hurt yourself from the different kinds of poops you have. Please make sure, whenever you have the poison cloud poop, okay, please keep in mind if there is any fire in the vicinity or you pull out a fire poop, this will explode the gas poop and it can do damage to you. So please be very careful about that. It is a very good synergy to throw into bosses or into enemies, but it is very, very easy to hurt yourself. So please make sure you watch out for that combo as a whole. And alongside that, there are also some enemies which can make that gas poop blow up as well. So something like Little Horn, the one variation that throws the bombs, the fire bombs, those guys and those bombs can proc the gas poops to go off. So please be careful about that when fighting specific types of enemies that have explosions or have different fire-based attacks. Now, besides that, the biggest tips here, make sure you always have a bomb or two held in your hold item. So whether it's a butt bomb, one of those ones that spawn a whole bunch of butt bombs, make sure you have at least 1 or 2 saved up, because just like normal Blue Baby, Tainted Blue Baby cannot have any red HP, which makes it very important for you to find soul hearts and tinted rocks throughout the run. So making sure you have enough bombs to blow up any rocks you find is very, very, very important. Alongside that, getting secret rooms and super secret rooms. Those are obviously very important as well. I would still prioritize getting your tinted rocks over the secret rooms, but make sure you have enough bombs to kind of make it through all that as well. Now, with that being said, any excess poops you do have, use them to help you out throughout the floors. Now, don't focus too much on them if you're not used to it, because I did realize if you focus too much on using your poops optimally, it basically makes it so you're going to be focusing too much on that bar and your poops, and you're going to get hit most likely by little easy, simple things that are easy to dodge. So, in my opinion, focus more on your tiers. If you see a bomb thing to use in the next room, use it right away. Don't focus too much on it. Now, without that being said, Angel rooms are still the play. Devil rooms still cost full soul hearts to take from, so just go angels instead. It is a lot safer to do since you cannot have any red HP. So Tainted Eve, the way they work, the longer you shoot, basically has a little charge bar that goes on, and whenever that depletes, it takes away a little bit of your red health first to make it into a clot, which a clot basically fires alongside you and it deals a portion of your damage. They are very, very, very strong. But my tips here on this character, the way you want to play it, in my opinion, is whenever you find any excess red HP, that is when you want to make a clot. Do not, out of the gate, make all of your health into clots and then run around and be one-shot the entire time. That you can do that. It does make you do more damage, but you are a lot more vulnerable to just die immediately. Now, the way I recommend y'all playing this as well is obviously the clots deplete in health over time. So the way to get their health back is you use Sumptorium pretty often to make them go back into your health bar, and then you basically get them back out to get them more HP. But the way I like to play Tainted Eve here is make sure you spam Sumptorium pretty often and get them back in your health bar and pull them back out as often as you can to get more healthy clots out there that aren't just one shot from death. Alongside that, using Sumptorium has another pretty valuable use, in my opinion, as well, as it repositions all the clots to be right where you are. So even if you have an excess amount of clots, if you use Sumptorium, they'll all kind of jump to you and respawn right below you. So this is very useful in fights, especially boss fights, that kind of reposition where you typically start from. So something like the Gertie fight, where it's always spawned to the bottom of the room, or the Mom's Heart fight, or just the normal Mom fight, where it spawns you at a certain position in the room. The clots will still spawn at the door you walked into, but you will spawn at the starting position for the room. So using Sumptorium right away when you walk into a boss room is always very, very nice to make sure your clots don't just die randomly because they spawn in a bad spot. So make sure you're spawning them in the right place, using Sumptorium where you can to reposition them if they spawn in a weird place. And the only other recommendation I have is go angels over devils. Obviously, for a lot of these characters, making sure you have enough red hearts to abuse the amount of red hearts you will find is better, in my opinion. So going angels over devils is just very, very, very nice. So make sure you are doing that over devils. So the way that Tainted Samson works, after you do X amount of damage or take X amount of hits, you go into a berserk state and go crazy. You lose your tears. You get a big, powerful bone swing with a speed up and a damage up, and you go crazy, which is very, very, very nice. So the way I like to play this character is whenever you do go in your berserk mode, ignore everything. Go room to room, clear the rooms as fast as possible, ignore all the consumables and pickups at the room spawn. Just try to clear the whole floor in the berserk mode while you can, because the speed and damage it gives you is very, very nice. It makes it fairly easy to kind of run through the entire floor and the boss as well with the damage it gives you. After you leave the berserk state, you can go back and pick up all the other stuff you ignored before, which I do think there's a bit of backtracking involved, which is a little bit annoying, but I do think it is the best way to play the character. Just kind of abuse the berserk state while you can. Now, whenever you get later in the game, the enemies are going to be tougher. You can't really one-shot the entire room in a berserk state, which can be kind of annoying. And honestly, for late game bosses, for things like Mega Satan or for Delirium, the berserk state is most likely more of a hindrance than it is a help. So abuse it while you can early, but later in the game, just kind of wait it out. Right, if you're in the Mega Satan fight and you're being barraged with tears, don't try to run in his face and swing the bone club at him. Honestly, just wait in the back of the room, wait for the berserk to go away, and just keep shooting your tears at him. So that's the way I like to play him. At least you can go crazy and try to abuse the berserk state late, but I think that's way too dangerous in my opinion. Just playing it safer, playing in the back of the room, shooting your tears, just kind of focusing on dodging whenever you're in the berserk state later is most likely the best play. But in my opinion, going either devils or angels are kind of equivalent. I think angels are a little bit better than devils on this character, just because the amount of damage you're doing early, you don't really need the extra boost of items the devil room could give you on the second floor. You can still go devils if you want a little bit of items early. It's completely up to you, but I prefer angels. So Tainted Azazel, the big thing with them is obviously you have the very small, thin brimstone beam, but it's the entire range of the room. But the other thing on top of that is you start with Haemolacrea, the thing that whenever you sneeze at enemies, they get a little brimstone mark over their head, and if you shoot them with the brimstone beam, it does a whole lot of extra damage, and it also does a bit of AoE to it as well. The sneeze is very, very, very broken, and it can help you clear out, especially early game bosses, very fast. Whenever you can sneeze on enemies, I recommend you do so, and then shoot them with the brimstone beam to basically one-shot them. But whenever you get later into the game, or even into the mid-game, I think sneezing can be kind of a false thing to go for. I think going for sneezes into shots is a bit more dangerous since you need to be in their face. And since you start with such a long-range brimstone beam that deals a decent amount of damage, honestly, I recommend just shooting the brimstone beam at them. It does decent damage as is. Just focus on dodging instead of sneezing in their face. If they're in your face, you can do it to knock them back a bit and to make them do more damage, but like, it's not necessary. You don't need to do it. Besides that, I do recommend going angels over devils for the same reason for normal Azazel, is you start off with 3 black hearts, no red HP. You can get red HP. You can go to devils if you want to, but I do just recommend going angels instead, just because you don't have that much, hearts to play with early, and I do think it's just a bit safer to go angels, in my opinion. So, moving on to Tainted Lazarus, one of the most difficult, annoying tainted characters there is. How they work. There are 2 instances of Lazarus that are going to be playing the game here. One is the one you see whenever you initially start, and whenever you clear a room, you swap to the other version of Tainted Lazarus. In the other version of Tainted Lazarus, you need to give different items to, because they have different sets of items. So, you're basically playing as 2 different characters that swap between back and forth. So you're basically going to be playing with half the items for both characters throughout the entire run, which is very annoying to micromanage to make sure you're giving the right items to the right people, the right characters. It is very confusing and very difficult to get used to. Do not think these guys are easy at any stretch of the imagination. But one tip I will give you right out of the gate, before I get into any of their pocket items or anything like that, is make sure you have Birthright unlocked. Similar to Tainted Isaac, I was talking about before, making sure you have Birthright is very, very good for these characters, just because the effect here is crazy. The Birthright makes it so the other version of Lazarus is always going to be in the same room as you as well, and it's kind of like a phantom form of the character if you want to think about it that way. And it plays a lot like Jacob and Esau, but that phantom Lazarus cannot take any damage. So it's like Jacob and Esau without the Esau part. It's really good. So make sure you have a Birthright unlocked, because if you do find it, it does make the run a lot easier. So with that being said, going into actual Tainted Lazarus stuff here, the pocket item they start off with is Flip, which basically makes it so you can automatically switch between the versions of Lazarus for a 6-room charge. But the main use of Flip here is, I need to explain it a little bit because it's a little bit confused. What Flip also does, it makes it so there is a phantom version of item pedestal items as well. So similarly to how you can flip-flop between your 2 different versions of Lazarus, you can flip-flop between 2 different versions of the item room. Whenever you go into the item room for the floor, you can see there is a phantom item. You can pick up one as of one version of Lazarus, flip to the other character, pick up that other item with the other version of Lazarus. So technically you're not losing out on items, but the only weird thing about Flip here is it does not have that phantom version of the item for every item that spawns. The way it works here is that whenever you go to a new floor, if you are holding Flip, any items that are in the floor initially, whenever you go to the new floor, will have a phantom version of that item. So the treasure room, since it spawns out of the gate, will have a phantom version of it. If there is a secret room which has an item in it, it will have a flipped version of it in there as well. Same with the shop, since it spawns out of the gate whenever you go to the new floor, it will have a flipped version as well. But items that do not have a flipped version, boss pool items that spawn after you defeat like a mini boss, like say you beat Lust and you get the virus, that is not going to have a flipped item as well, because it is spawning after you go to the new floor, if that makes sense. So like the boss pool item as well, it spawns after you beat the boss, therefore it will not have a flipped item. It is a bit confusing to get used to, but just know that whenever you go to a new floor, any items that are there out of the gate will have a flipped item. This also includes deals. So the devil deal and the angel deal will also have flipped items as well, because there is a devil and angel every floor, even though you may not get the chance to go there. So that being said, since I'm talking about the deals, I do recommend going devils over angels here in a weird case for Tainted Lazarus. That is just because you can buy, obviously, multiple amounts of items with one character, flip to the other to get multiple devil items as well. Say you go into a devil deal, you have a version of Lazarus that has, what, 4 HP? You spend all that 4 HP to get 3 new items, you flip, the other character also gets 3 new items. So you get 6 items for the cost of 4 hearts. That is very good. Compared to if you go to an angel deal, you can only take 1 item and you can just hope that the flipped version of that item is good for the other version of Lazarus as well. From my opinion, it's usually not going to have 2 quality 4 items in the angel deal. I think it is better to go devils in this case, just because you can get more items and you can kind of flip-flop which good items go to which character on the devils, just because it gives you a little bit more options. So with that being said, this is a very complicated character. It does take a while to get used to. The other big tip here, make sure, similar to the D6, similar to the void item, make sure you are micromanaging your flip charges as well as possible. It is very confusing to make sure you're going into the right room as the right character, to make sure you pick it up as the right one, and then flip to get the other version. It is a bit complicated. There is a bit of a learning curve there to make sure you are micromanaging it properly. It's a lot. Trust me, it's a lot. It can be very, very broken. But in my opinion, the biggest tip here, just get Birthright. Just get Birthright. It makes the game so much easier.
Diarrhea.
So I know for normal Eden, there's not many tips I can give you. And for Tainted Eden, it's kind of similar. But there is one really, really big trick I want to teach you guys about in case you do not know. Because there is one big trick you can pull to basically make it so any time you re-roll all of your items after you get hit, they re-roll into a specific pool of items, which is crazy. That sounds really cool, right? Okay, so hear me out, hear me out. I don't know if it's a bug. I don't know what it is. It just works. Okay, just trust me, it works. Until they patch it out, it works. You're going to be going throughout the entire floor, okay? Full clear the entire floor. Let's just say you're on the 2nd floor. You're in basement 2, okay? You full clear the entire floor. Go into the item room. Do not pick up the item. Go into the shop. Do not buy or pick up any of the items in there. Make sure you're completing the boss room last. Make sure you full clear everything. Go into the secret rooms, go into the super secret rooms, make sure you go in everywhere you can, and then you go to the boss, and don't pick up the boss item, and then you get the deal. Okay, now you're in the devil deal. It could even be an angel deal. It doesn't matter which one it is. What you want to do in here, buy an item. Go pay for an item. Get a devil deal. Get an angel deal. Pick it up. Okay? Next thing you're going to do is you're going to be backtracking. Go back throughout the floor. Go back, pick up the boss item you didn't pick up. Go to the shop, buy that item you didn't pick up. Go to the secret room, pick up the item in there you didn't pick up. Go to the treasure room, pick up the item in there you didn't pick up. Okay? Now that you've done all that, now is whenever you get hit, any of those items you have picked up after that devil deal will now turn into devil deal items. Now you may be asking, Matt, why does this work? I don't know. I have no idea why this works. In my knowledge of the game, the only reason I understand why this works is because for whatever reason, Tainted Eden, it takes the last pool you were in into account after you pick up an item. So since the last real room you were in was a devil room, any items you pick up after that, the game thinks, oh, you must have picked this up in the devil deal as well. So all the items you picked up in the treasure room, in the boss room, in the secret room, they will now think they're devil room items, and after you get hit, they'll transform into devil deal items. So now with this knowledge, this can be applied to any room in the game, okay? So if you wanted to go in the secret room last, and then go back and pick up the boss pool item, the treasure room item you didn't pick up, then get hit, they'll re-roll in the secret room items. Same thing for angel deals, same exact thing. The only thing to note is make sure you don't go into an uncleared room, then cleared, and then pick up the items. Otherwise, the game will think you're in the treasure room, and it'll do the same thing and turn everything, all the items you pick up after that, into treasure room items. It's a bit confusing, but whenever you do get it, it's very cool. It's very, I don't know if it's a glitch, I don't know if it's a bug. It is very fun. It makes playing this character a lot more enjoyable in my opinion, because you can kind of still mix and morph the run to what you want it to be, whether it's a full angel room item, a full devil deal run. I don't know. It's very fun. Go try it out. That's my biggest tip for the character. Other than that, just don't get hit. Forehead. So Tainted Lost, one of the quote-unquote most difficult characters in the game, just because most of the run you're going to be one heart from death. Okay, completely understandable. My tips for this guy, since you start off with the Holy Card, it is very tempting to just use it right away to make sure you're not one shot in the early rooms. Hold on to the Holy Card. Don't use it right away, just because there are different items that you can find to basically duplicate the Holy Card or use it for free. So something like a blank card, something like Diplopia. You can find those early in shops to duplicate your Holy Card, because they are so important to have. Duplicating it is very important, and since the early floor rooms aren't as difficult as later game, it is easier to hold on to it and not take damage, and even if you do, you just restart and do a new run. So hold on to the Holy Card until maybe the end of the second floor or something like that, until you find the second shop, and if you don't find anything to duplicate it, go ahead and use it. But in my opinion, being able to find something that duplicates the card or a blank card that uses it for you is very, very nice to find, so please make sure you're looking for those in your shops. Later in the game, obviously, scouring and looking for holy cards is the key to this character. Making sure you always have one in your pocket is very, very nice. So make sure you find extra bombs. Blow up the skulls in the later levels, because skulls can drop different cards, and the cards do have a 10% chance to be holy card when playing Tainted Lost. So make sure you're looking for them whenever you need it. If you already have a holy card in your pocket, don't worry about it too much. It is always very nice to find additional holy cards in case you mess up. But like, if you already have one in your pocket, don't stress about it too much. But just be sure to blow up the skulls when you have the chance. It is very important when playing Tainted Lost. You're going to be getting perfection, okay? You're not going to be getting hit, just because if you get hit, you die. But you're going to be getting perfection. But with that being said, it is very important to understand which items you want to pick up and which items you want to avoid. Because there are very good items. Say something like Lodestone. Okay, it's a quality 3 item. It sucks in enemies towards your shots, or towards enemies that are affected by Lodestone, which is very good. Typically, you want to understand which items there are out there that can cause a bit of randomness to your run, which will cause you to die. So things like Lodestone, which on paper are very nice, do affect enemy tiers as well, and makes it so it is a lot more unpredictable as to where they will go after they get shot out. So in my professional opinion on Tainted Lost, avoid things like Lodestone. Obviously Strange Attractor, avoid that. Things like $3 bill, even something like Rainbow Cookie. I know it's cursed to say, hear me out. That can still spawn the fire, brain, whatever tier, which can explode, and then guess what? You die. Okay? If you want to play it super safe, do not pick up items like that. If you want a ball, go ahead, pick them up, man. I'm not controlling you. These are tips to help you out throughout the run. If you want to like give yourself a detriment but be cool about it, I understand. I do the same thing. At this point, when you have Tainted Lost, you should at least have a good understanding as to what items are good, what items are bad, what items can potentially hurt you. So just avoid the ones that could potentially hurt you to play it a bit safer to make sure you get throughout the whole run without dying. Now, the other thing here, obviously same thing as normal Lost, you can get devil deals for free. But with that being said, since Tainted Lost has a passive of quote-unquote better items, and in case you don't know how it works, basically any quality, I think 0 or 1 or 2, have a small chance to be re-rolled into a higher quality item. So it's not always going to be the case where you find a better item, but it's just a good chance you will. I do still recommend going Angels over Devils. I know Devils have a decent pool of good items you can find in there. I know you can only take one. I just love the thrill of going in the Angel room, finding my Godhead, finding my Sacred Heart. But don't get me wrong, you can go Devils as well, since it is very free. You can find your Twisted Pair, your Incubus, your other things like that, which are very good. I just like Angels better in my opinion, but honestly, it's completely up to you which one you go. So the way Tainted Lilith works, you kind of shoot tears. Instead of shooting tears, you shoot out a little baby, and then that baby then shoots out tears. But in my opinion, Tainted Lilith is one of the strongest characters just outright, because you don't need any items to be good on this character. The way I like to play them is I just kind of whip out the baby, and the baby does a portion of your damage stat as damage whenever it comes out, which is very, very strong. It does a good amount of damage. It pushes back enemies. It is very nice. Now, what you can do is you can keep holding the fire button after the baby's out, and the baby will then start firing tears, not homing, but they will kind of direct towards where the enemies are, so you really don't need to aim after you shoot at the baby. But the way I like to play it, since I just kind of whip out the baby and do damage and then make it come back in and I whip it out again, the way I like to do it is I don't like to get a lot of damage down. So things like soy milk, which up your fire rate, is nice. But since the damage the baby does scales off your own damage, I don't like taking any damage downs and just getting a big damage up, so whenever I whip out the baby, it just does a shit ton of damage. But if you do want to play it a bit differently, from me at least, you can get those soy milks, you can get those big fire rates up, and just whip out the baby and have the baby basically home it and do a bunch of damage to the enemy. Both of these are very valid ways to play the character. With that being said, that's kind of all there is to the character. It's just whipping out the baby, making it shoot if you want, or just kind of keep whipping. Either way, it is very strong, a very easy character compared to a lot of the other Tainted ones. My only other, I guess, tip you could say is I prefer to go Angels over Devils, just because you don't start off with that much red HP, so obviously better to hold on the red HP you got. So Tainted Keeper is another one of those characters. Make sure you have Birthright unlocked. It is not necessary at all. It just makes playing the character a lot more fun, in my opinion. And the more fun you have as a character, the better they are, in my opinion. But basically, how Tainted Keeper works: anytime you shoot an enemy and kill an enemy with your tears, it drops a coin on the ground. Whether it's a golden penny, a normal penny, a lucky penny, a nickel, a dime. It's a chance to be any kind of coin type there is after you kill an enemy. So you're going to be getting a lot of money throughout the entire run here as Tainted Keeper. The other thing to mention here is that your shops are upgraded. Your shops are crazy good to have more different types of items. It has boss pool items, treasure room items, a whole bunch of different types of items in the shops now. So with that being said, instead of focusing on your treasure rooms, focus on your shops. Focus on going to your shops first, and if anything, skip your treasure rooms. You do not need your treasure rooms at all, and I didn't mention before, but everything in the game you now have to buy. So even the treasure rooms, which are typically free, you now have to pay for. 15 cents always for any treasure room items. Now obviously Devil Deals and Angel Rooms you also have to pay for, but the amount you pay is dependent on the quality of the item. If it's quality 3 or 4, I believe it's 30 cents no matter if it's Devil or Angels, and it's 15 cents otherwise. So make sure you're having enough money after you to beat everything to go to the Devil, to go to the Angel, to make sure you have enough money to buy your quality 3, quality 4 items. So make sure you have at least 30 cents. Make sure you go to your shops. Early game, skip your treasure rooms. Focus only on the shops. Okay, because the one room from the treasure room is not going to be better than, what, 4 or 5 items in the shop that could be fantastic. And the bonus of skipping your treasure rooms is you get a planetarium chance. So obviously, make sure you also have planetariums unlocked. If you don't, go ahead and go in your treasure room. It's not going to help you out too much, but you can go take a look in there. Otherwise, skip it, try to get a planetarium, and until you get it, then you go in the treasure room. Honestly, you can go Angels, you can go Devils. They're kind of equivalent in my head. You're going to have to pay for both of them. I like Angels personally a bit better, so I will always go Angels as Tainted Keeper. But you can also go Devils in case you have a good amount of excess money on the second floor. You can go pop your head in there, take a look, see if you get an easy Twisted Pair or something like that. Pick it up, you'll be good. But honestly, just have a lot of fun. You're at low HP for a lot of the time, so just make sure you're kind of micromanaging whenever you want to and need to go pick up a coin after an enemy, or if you can just leave it there and you'd be perfectly fine without, dying. You're going to be low a lot of the time, so just make sure you're accounting for that, and just try to pick up as many coins as possible without dying. Next up is Tainted Apollyon. So Tainted Apollyon, the only big kicker with this guy is instead of having the Void, you now have the Abyss. And instead of having Fire Rate, you now have Flies. Yippee! So the way you want to play this is every time you abyss an item, you turn that abyssed item into a new attack fly, which will get shot out similar to your tears and come back to you. So these are kind of what you want to be stacking up throughout the entire run. Instead of voiding up items and sucking them up for stats, you're turning them into flies to help you deal damage throughout the room. It is kind of fun. I know there are different, whenever you abyss up specific items, there are certain synergies that happen for some of the attack flies. Just ignore that. Listen, if you suck up Cricket's head into Abyss, you have a problem. You have a problem. What you want to do here, the biggest tip I have on Tainted Apollyon, just suck up any active item. Basically, you can abyss any active item. It just turns it into a fly. It does not turn anything into stats. Just make it a fly. Make that active item now useful, so you can now throw some flies at them. Stack up as many as you can. I know the downside of Tainted Apollyon is you start off with a really low base fire rate, which can be very annoying, so it kind of incentivizes you to abyss the first few things, get a few flies to help you out. After you do that, honestly, my say is just pick up as many passive items as you can that give you any kind of benefit. Abyss anything else that's an active that's useless, even some stats that are kind of useless like range. I mean, go ahead and abyss it. It's no big deal. I would say still go Angels over Devils, just because with the Abyss, you can still abyss the key piece after the Angel, after you fight the Angel statue. So make sure you're doing that. Go Angels instead of Devils. You get to abyss some free stuff. So now for Tainted Forgotten, the way they work, you now control only the soul, and you have a little bag of bones above you throw at people, and instead of shooting tears after you throw the bag of bones the bone guy now swings his club wherever he lands. So this is one of the weirdest characters. Not as difficult as someone like Jacob and Esau, because only you can take damage as the soul. The bag of bones will not take damage. But it is very weird to control the bone guy to make sure he's in the right position to do damage to things. Because obviously you throwing the bone guy, it will do damage to guys. But the biggest thing you want to make sure you're doing here, after you, or whenever you're throwing him, make sure you're throwing him to a position where you can then pick him back up to throw him again. That is the biggest issue I've had before. I've had issues where I threw the bone guy over some fires, and I have to go through like the blue fires to pick up the bone guy, so I have to take damage to then continue doing the room to not, hurt myself. So it is very weird to do. It is very weird to get used to. But just make sure whenever you're throwing him, don't throw him willy-nilly. Be a bit more controlled as to where you're throwing your bag of bones. Now, with that being said, throwing the bag of bones will one-shot most things, but not bosses. It will not one-shot bosses. You have to make sure for sure whenever you're throwing him to make him go in a position where you can continue whacking him with the bone sword after he lands on the floor. That is the biggest tip I have there. Alongside that, it is a good thing to know for later boss fights like Mega Satan, even like the Mom's Heart fight, that the bag of bones can block tears. So you can throw him in front of you, have him like whack the enemy in the face like the Mega Satan fight. Whenever he's doing the kind of tear effects of the fire coming out of him, he can block all of that. So just stand behind him while you're whacking him with the bone guy and just dodge. Okay, it's really not that difficult in my opinion. It is a bit weird to get used to, but the amount of damage the bag of bones guy does, it makes it kind of simple. So just focus on where you're throwing the bone guy. Make sure you're not throwing him willy-nilly. Make sure you're using him to block tears where you need to. Alongside that, I would just say go angels over devils. Just because no red HP, you can't get any red HP as this guy. So angels are just going to be inherently better to make sure you have more HP at the end of the game. Next up is Tainted Bethany, which is just like Bethany, but like flip-flopped or something. So instead of only having red HP, Tainted Bethany only has soul hearts or black hearts. She cannot hold any red heart containers at all. Your red hearts now are used for charges similarly to how your soul hearts before were used as charges then. Tainted Bethany, the biggest thing she has going for her is Lemmigeddon. I don't know how to say it. Just go with me here. The pocket active item. The book, which makes it so anytime you use it, you get a wisp of an item. Okay? The biggest thing to know here for Lemmigeddon is that it has a 10% chance to take the current room's pool into effect whenever you use it. So you want to make sure you're saving your charges for going into the secret room, going into the angel room, going into the devil deal. Make sure you use your book in there because there is a small percent chance it will take the current room's pool into effect and give you a free wisp from that item's pool. Similar to Bethany, you want to make sure you're stacking up as many red HP charges as possible and then kind of blasting them all in one go. In my opinion, using them all in Lemmigeddon is probably the better play compared to using it for any other active item you may find. The other tips I have here for Tainted Bethany, there are some certain wisps that are not too good to hold on to. If you grow into something like Cursed Eye or something like, I don't know, Dr. Fetus, and you really don't want Dr. Fetus, you can actually run the enemies into your wisp that has that item for you to get rid of it. It is a little difficult to do, but you can do it in the cases where you get certain items that you really do not want to keep. Now, also with that being said, there is a cap to how many wisps you can have with Lemmigeddon. I believe the cap is around 32 or 64. It's somewhere in there. I will have a number somewhere on screen, I'm sure, of how many wisps you can get. But after you reach that certain point, there is no reason to continue using Lemmigeddon, as whenever you use it, it'll kick out any old item you have to replace it with a newer one. Which, I mean, you can do, but I mean, if you haven't that many wisps in general, I would prefer just to hold on to the charges until I lose one, and then use it again. When going to either angels or devils, similar to a lot of the other characters, I prefer going angels over devils for the same reason as I don't have as much HP. I cannot give up all of my HP to go to devil deal when I have no red HP to give. So just go angels, they're free, they're better, just go there instead. I believe is a lot better in terms of the items you can get in general, and just use your Lemmigeddon book in there as well. Maybe you'll get a Godhead. So the way Tainted Jacob works, instead of being Jacob and Esau, you're now just Jacob. Don't worry about the other guy, he's not there anymore. Until he is. So the way it works, Esau will randomly come up throughout the floor after X amount of seconds when you're on a floor, and he will start chasing you down. Now, this version of Esau will do damage to enemies, which is fantastic, but he will also deal damage to you. But the damage he does to you isn't normal, he turns you into the Lost. If Tainted Esau ever hits you, you turn into the Lost and are now one shot from both enemies, and if you get hit by Esau again, you just die. So the biggest tip I have here, focus only on Esau. If you get hit by Esau once, you're basically dead. Right, I mean, it gives you flight, which can be very nice since you turn into the Lost, but this version of the Lost you turn into does not have Holy Mantle and cannot protect you. So focus only on Esau. Sometimes you will need to tank some hits from enemies to avoid getting hit by Esau. It is very much getting used to his patterns and how he charges you. But with that being said, there are just still some circumstances where you cannot avoid getting hit by either an enemy or with Esau. And it may take a bit of rewiring in your brain to prefer to run into an enemy than getting hit by Esau, but you will need to do that. So that is my big tip there. Focus on Esau. But with that being said, you can also abuse Anima Sola to lock down Esau and make him charge through both enemies and bosses and everything. Esau does a lot of damage, and the biggest thing here is Esau avoids any boss armor, which is crazy. It does a lot of damage to endgame bosses as well, which is crazy good. But with that being said, using Esau also is a very big risk, as obviously you need to make sure you're dodging him. You need to make sure you understand when you're letting go, how far away he is, what angle he's coming from, to make sure you still avoid him. Because even though you use Anima Sola, and he charges through enemies and through bosses and does a lot of damage, he can still hit you. So just make sure you kind of are keeping an eye on him. Always take a look as to where he is before you do anything, before you use Anima Sola. If you hear his charging noise, make sure you know where he is. If you don't, good luck. The other thing to note here is for Esau, if you use Anima Sola, you can walk through Esau without taking damage. There are some rooms, like the bomb fly room where there's one single path and 4 bomb flies. If Esau gets into a position where you have to go through him to get to the next room, you can use Anima Sola to lock him down, and whenever he's chained up by Anima Sola, you can walk through him without turning into the Lost. So that is a big tip. Make sure you are abusing that when you need to. For the deals for Tainted Jacob, there are a few different options you can go. Obviously, the safe play is you can go Angels. You can just go Angels, stack up on your red HP, because in my opinion, the way I like to play Tainted Jacob is to just tank enemies. Just focus only on Esau, dodge Esau. If that means I run into enemies 20 times in a room, then so be it. I'll run into enemies 20 times in a room. As long as I don't die by the hands of Esau, we're fine. But with that, my playstyle being that way, I like to go Angels just to make sure I preserve on all the red HP I can get. But with that being said, you can also get Devil Deals for free. Whoa, how do you do that? You turn into the Lost and then pick up the Devil Deal for free. Since you're technically the Lost, you get to pick up a free Devil Deal, but you only get one. So what I like to do, you can go Devil Deals early. You can take a look in there. If there are multiple items you want to get, you pick them up as normal Tainted Jacob, and then you turn into the Lost by getting hit by Esau, and then pick up the other item you want as well for free. It is completely up to you which one you go to. I guess if you're just starting out at Tainted Jacob, go Devils. It is a bit easier that way, and just turn into the Lost to get some free items. That's all the characters. Did you like my tips? Did you like my tricks? Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Send help.